Hey, good here from New Zealand at AI for a special edition of our AI show. And I've got Ritesh here from Epiphany. How are you going, mate?
Hey, mate. Pretty good. Not too bad.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm sitting here at the generator, so our lovely space up here, which I get to work from, which is awesome. And today we wanted to just have a chat to you about marketing metrics and why they're changing and getting to kind of the root cause. So as a marketer, we've got all this data coming in from customer feedback loops, whether that's kind of NPS scores or live chat data,
Customer sat.
emails, and customer feedback and contact center metrics and complaints and all of that kind of stuff. And these metrics are changing all the time. They're fluctuating. They're going up and down. And I certainly know it's really important to be able to understand why those metrics are changing, why they're fluctuating, and especially being able to understand why they're changing in real time. So why are they so? Why is that so important for a marketer? What are you hearing from the people that you're working with in terms of why it's so vital for them to be able to get that real time data?
So it's an interesting one. Like we've actually sort of been in the whole customer engagement world for around 20 years. About 5 years ago, we sort of went on this journey. We're collecting so much unstructured data in the form of, the things that you kind of mentioned, customer feedback. As social grew, anything that was unstructured wasn't really being handled well by analytics tools. So there's a lot of great BI tools out there which can do numbers and crunch numbers pretty well. But the real thing in understanding why people behave a certain way or they form certain opinions about you, a machine couldn't really do well. So
there's a whole lot of dark data that's kind of sitting behind the scenes, right?
And the challenge is, well, how do you, as we sort of move into that, the tech world starts to kind of radically, exponentially change. How do you actually get the real gold dust out of that dark data? And I think, we believe it's actually in the why, not necessarily the what. The what kind of would always move up and down or fluctuate, but you kind of really need to expose underneath that dark data what's lying there from the way people behave and the things that they say, because that's the real reason why numbers move up and down.
And it's things like, content and emails are constantly changing. The things that people say over the phone are always going to be different or changing as processes change, as new products or services come onto the market, right? Sure. And so by listening to that customer feedback, we're able to start digging into exactly what's being mentioned or what some of those keywords or conversations are that are influencing that customer feedback, right?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest challenges is actually sort of learning how to crack the code of language from humans, right? But also actually sort of what we've been sort of trying to do is teach the machine in terms of how the world is also changing. So at a macro level, what are the changes going on in the world that are influencing how people act or behave, but also tying that in and looking at things in context and the conversations. So that's really important when you're looking at unstructured data.
So Epiphany is a customer feedback analytics platform. So you guys are working with clients. You're sucking in all of this dark data, all of these feedback loops, whether that's a form or an NPS score or whatever, and then able to do what? To present that in quite a visual way. I know you're going to show us a demo in a little minute, but to visualize and help people kind of understand what that root cause is, right?
Yeah, we want to make it, when we designed Epiphany, the sole purpose was to kind of get it out of the back end and sort of data stuck in operational functions in sort of big organizations and get it out to people who can actually make a difference. So that's your marketers, your decision makers, and at that sort of C-suite level. So it works really well, not just for analysts, but anyone who's going to look at data to kind of drive business improvement initiatives. So that's the key for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess it's enabling you to tweak marketing copy, or tweaking your collateral, or your or what people are saying over the phone, and be able to
Absolutely.
monitor that performance quite quickly, right?
Absolutely, and kind of do that in an agile way so that you're not stuck over months and months, like sort of mining through data. Literally, sort of within minutes of that data being available, we want to kind of get to that root cause. Yeah,
Because I mean, I hear stories time and time again of companies, running NPS programs, and they're collecting all of this really rich data in terms of, from the way that customers, think about different interactions, and
yeah,
it's sitting there on a table doing nothing. And
I
I
know.
guess in the old days, it was, maybe around morning tea or something, someone's, going through some of these feedback forms one by one, and kind of getting some anecdotal
Yeah,
evidence, right? And
that still happens.
the
It still happens. It
it
still
still
happens, just yeah, and all over the world. Not just. We do a lot of work in the US as well as sort of offshore, and the same thing happens over and over again. But yeah,
so in terms of so the key impacts, when people are doing NPS scores, what are the kind of the key things that what are the problems that they're looking to solve with that?
yeah, usually NPS is kind of it's an interesting metric because it's about recommendation really, and kind of underneath it you can sort of find out why people leave, right? So it's really strongly linked with churn. So if you can really understand what moves it up and down, and what are the key things influencing it, you can solve those issues with your customers leaving you. So that's a huge sort of win for a lot of our customers.
We know it's way cheaper. It's way cheaper to retain a customer than it is to acquire a new one, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So can you give us a deep dive into the platform and kind of showcase a little bit, just show me a little bit around how you guys are doing that, so we can kind of visualize for us how we're getting to that root cause, and we can start seeing what that looks like. I think that would be really interesting.
No worries. So yeah, we've got version 3 of our product coming out sort of in a few weeks. We've just done a round of feedback sessions from a lot of our customers in terms of how we bring the UI to life. So I'll show you the beta version actually. So there might be
Cool.
a few.
So what's new in V3?
We've really wanted to focus on the user journey in terms of when you get into the data, just at a high level. Okay, let's look at a snapshot. What are the top things that are driving my metrics? Okay, now let's dive in deeper, and there's little tools that we've built in, and the one we'll cover today is trends, because we're going to talk about what moves your metrics up or down, but also with a click of a button, you can really sort of get to you can compare different brands together, so you can kind of so there's a lot more functionality in the tool to kind of build that whole journey when you're doing analysis.
No, it's exciting times for you guys.
Yeah, cool. So should I let me just jump into the demo now. Okay. Just tell me when you can. Right. Are we live?
We are. I can see it. Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, what you guys are looking at now is just it's a beta version of our portal. It's hosted online, and what you can kind of see are essentially Epiphany analyses here, which have been kind of processed by Epiphany and sort of ready for us to dive in, right? So I'll just jump into this airlines review data that we've got.
Okay.
So that's kind of just from public.
So how raw is this information that gets put on? When we're importing data, how much cleaning has got to go on?
Yeah. So often what we get from our clients is the data can simply get into it's a couple of ways. We can connect live in an API with the different sort of data collection platforms or data lakes in a client organization, but also in a very simple way, it could just be an export in the form of an Excel file where you've got thousands and thousands of comments, which is just sort of customer feedback. You've got metrics as well that are related to those comments. Then there is segments, customer segments, other demographic information, so that you can kind of slice and dice to get that full view. So it's in a little bit of a mess when you first put it in, and when you kind of dive in, what we do is we bring it to life and kind of show you what are the things that you need to focus on.
Mm-hmm. So I can see down there, there's a down the bottom, there's a missed flight, which is a bright red, which is obviously an cancelled flight.
Yeah.
Those are obviously pretty hot topics in terms of frustrating people, as we can well imagine.
Yeah, so there's a mix of things that sort of come through. And I'll just quickly explain what we're looking at. So just on the top here, there's this little bit here called I want to improve. So I'll just click on that. And essentially what that gives me is an option of all the things that are important for our clients in terms of the metrics that are important to their business. So it could be things like customer satisfaction, NPS. You could even have things coming through from the data, which is like contact center related to operational costs. So you can see what type of calls are taking really long time. So that's usually linked with money. So anything that you've got in the data, which is a metric, you can click on and you can sort of base the analysis on that. So in this case, we're just looking at overall rating of airlines. And you can kind of see, okay, here's the red ones are kind of the big topics that are bringing my score down. So there's slow interaction, the one you mentioned around cancelled flight. But also, there's some good things going on over here as well on the top quadrant. So again, keep doing those things because they're good for the business. So that's kind of just a very high level view that our sort of customers dive into. But it's pretty easy to kind of dive in a bit deeper. Like I can just type in staff, and I can look at, okay, what are the things that are related to staff? So then I can kind of see all the different nuances in terms of, okay, rude staff, inefficient staff, professional staff. It can even get down to things like smiling staff, right? So it's really important when you're doing this kind of analysis, not just to look at the surface, but try to really get a deep understanding, because that's what's going to help you find out that why. Cool. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the key things that always comes up with a lot of our clients is, okay, my NPS has gone down in the last month, and there's sort of panic stations in terms of we kind of think we know why, but we don't really have a good understanding of exactly what's made it kind of go down. So
yeah, we want fact. We don't want anecdotal kind of opinion here, do we?
We want evidence so that when we make those decisions, we're absolutely sure that those are the things that are having an impact. So what I might do, Justin, is just dive into this little trends tool that we've built. So this is actually pretty amazing what I'm about to show you. So I'll just dive into there. And what that does is essentially Epiphany kind of runs an algorithm, and it shows me over time what are the things that are, from a customer point of view, whether they're getting better, bad things getting better in that top left quadrant. On the top right, we've got good things that are getting better, right? And you might also want to pay attention of good things getting worse. And then you've got on the bottom left, here's the things that are getting worse and they're already bad, right? And we're just looking, at the moment, we're just looking at that time period over here. But as I kind of scroll through, we've got the trend over time. And I can see that just around May and June, there's been a little bit of a drop. So I might just drag my slider there. And now we're just focused on that month. Just in June. So what's happened between from from May to June, and we can see straight away that there's a few things going on here that's sort of pulling that score down from their customer feedback. So there's a little bit around waiting times, interaction. There's a thing around.
So
yeah, go on.
It'd be quite interesting here to see, and I guess when you're the airline looking at this, is to think about what was happening either in the departure gates or were there flight delays? What other things were actual incidents were going on at that time which might have caused this? Because while the waiting time is obviously a big influence here in terms of the negative NPS score, there could be something, what was the cause behind that? Might have been a weather issue, for argument's sake, that is kind of out of your control, or it might have been, looking at going through security or something like that. That could have been an issue at the departure gate, which could have been something as well. But
yeah, and that's where the great thing is. It's all of that there is in the data. So should we maybe have a look at, or we'll have a look at a couple of those things that you just mentioned around what's.
Have a look at waiting time.
Waiting time. So waiting time is kind of a little bit of a generic one. So we can kind of go through, look at that, and you can actually get down to the examples. So we can kind of see, okay, there's a few things around delay that's popping up. So just a bit.
And this is the natural language processing going on here, which is starting to highlight some of those key words, isn't it?
Yeah. So the key here for us is it's not necessarily just taking keywords, right? Epiphany actually reads and understands the context of that conversation. So this is in the airlines world, right? But there's many different ways of kind of looking at things. So even if you've said waiting somewhere, it understands that a delayed flight is actually related to waiting time, right? So there's many different ways of kind of saying the same thing. Then you can sort of dive in as well. Like if I look at on-time performance, you might say, okay, well, what exactly is that made up of, right? So what I can do is kind of just flick to this table view here. And kind of dive into that in a little bit more detail. Hang on, I think I've got a little bit of this is our little beta version, so it can sometimes break on me because guys are kind of playing with it at this time. So you can actually dive into it in a little bit more deeper and just to kind of see what's underneath it. But the other thing I can do is I can also, you mentioned weather before, so if I kind of use that, just type that in as and you can kind of see straight away there's a thing around they told him bad weather in Chicago. So there's and I know that this data actually has a lot of US airlines, right? So around that May, June is kind of some are there, but we can kind of look at what exactly could be causing that. So if I just flick over to what you can do is actually you can segment the data by whether it's country or it's interesting to actually look at it by airlines as well. So when I do that, I can actually get a slice for, okay, well, where is the problem? If I'm looking at airlines globally, I can see some of the US airlines popping up there. But anything that you've got in the data, you can cut it by that so that you can kind of see where your issues are. So if you had customer segments,
you've got any number of different filters. Yeah, any number of filters that you can apply to this to start drilling into it.
Absolutely. So that's kind of just a very quick way of looking at the data, and you can just hone in on a specific kind of time period and kind of see why it's kind of gone down. And we want to do that and make it as easy as possible, sort of in a few clicks, really. So
this is such a good way of being able to visualize the feedback back to staff like this. Like it's not necessarily a report that a marketer has generated to showcase in Death by PowerPoint. It's actually real-time analytics, and this is the honest truth here. And so it actually has an element of trust and certainty behind that data, which is certainly going to help when you're starting to build their story and showcase to staff kind of, okay, when these things happen, this is how it affects our customer feedback, and these are the things that customers value from us the most. And these are the things that cause problems, and so we have to constantly focus on culture and keeping people happy and making sure that we've got staff that are smiling or are able to problem solve and things like that, and being able to to really isolate those key things.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So that's awesome. So what are the can you give me any insights into kind of what would be the next kind of step from this? So once a company is kind of to start deep diving into this data, what are they going to do next with it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. The first time you actually look at your data in this way, it's a bit of a change in terms of what you have kind of traditionally been doing, just mainly because it's actually a way of standardizing a lot of essentially the way your customers are talking about you. So in the end, as a business, you kind of move from making decisions in a siloed manner to kind of doing it in a standardized way across the entire customer side, right? And putting those connections in so that you can actually kind of deliver that holistic single customer experience essentially on all your channels. So that's what we want to sort of move towards, standardization, but at the same time having that really, really deep understanding of the things that matter most.
Yeah, look, I think it just makes it so simple, doesn't it, to start understanding why those metrics are fluctuating. So,
and it literally is minutes, Justin, from when you put data into Epiphany.
So it's processing it incredibly fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw in there's like 7,000 or 8,000 records and just in that data set that we're looking at.
Yeah. I mean, we get up to hundreds of thousands in terms of the records that we put through the machine. And the first thing it does is it loads it, and in the processing, it's also learning. So the learning's coming from the industry knowledge that we apply to the data. So it's kind of getting intelligent, and at the same time, it's also learning how the world is changing. So we feed data into it so that it's learning how the world is evolving, things like that, so that it can really understand conversations and people.
So how can, first question is there like a minimum amount of data that you kind of like to be able to process to get good results, or?
It can work from, say, you've got 500 records, that will work straight away. Obviously you can't slice it by, you can't filter as much, obviously, because you get sort of lower samples, but anything over 500 records, it will work. And then we sort of get up pretty high when we are working with a lot of our enterprise customers who have a lot of data.
Okay, so how can people watching this video, if they're interested in starting to explore utilizing Epiphany, how do they get started? Can they jump on your website and just start playing around with some test data, or by uploading their own data? How does that?
Yeah, we do. So we do have a free trial for anyone who wants to kind of go have a look. And that sort of, you can chuck in a little bit of data. You can play on this demo data set that we've also got. So to do that, you just go to epiphany.ai. And if you want to speak to someone, feel free to just sort of reach out, and we're more than happy to help.
Awesome. Hey, well, look, thanks so much for your time today. It's really interesting to kind of see how the platform's evolving and just how quickly and easy it is to start interpreting this data nowadays. It's one of the great promises of AI and machine learning and the data processing ability that we've got now. But being able to visualize things like that, I think, is just incredible. So thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we will see you guys at our next AI show coming up shortly.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Justin, and we'll talk soon, mate.
All right. Thanks very much, Ritesh.
Cheers.
Cheers.